Alright, since I'm hiking alone today, we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to get a fire started here. Got some dried pine needles in here. A little bit of animal fur. Some unfortunate beast. I'll let that catch. Some of the pine needles on that, let that go. Catches real fast. Just using a basic fire steel, a survival knife. Make sure that you have fuel already kind of gathered nearby to keep this going. Alright, so now a little commentary. Many of you have probably heard of the Adirondacks out in New York. And back in the times of it was heavily populated by Native American tribes, the most superior out there were the Iroquois, warring group, and most other groups were subservient to the Iroquois. The term Adirondack actually is an Iroquois word for bark eater, because most of the other tribes out that way at that time were known for eating bark. And the Iroquois used this as a slang term, like, you know, you'd call somebody a redneck today, or you know, pick something else that might be politically incorrect. But in fact, the Adirondack were among the healthiest of tribes, because they knew what they were eating was actually good for them. One example that I'm going to show you here today is an example of how to get vitamin C in the wild, which is very important and crucial to not coming down with scurvy. Common pine needles. I've got some water here. It's already clean water of mine. Add some pine needles into that. Pine needles are a huge source of vitamin C in the wild. Put my favorite Harley glass. I'll set it over on this stone and let it get warm. And essentially, really making like a pine needle tea. Kind of crudely anyway. That's what it is. But that water will heat up and the vitamin C will be absorbed out of the pine needles into the water. They don't get limber enough, like a noodle, to say. You can eat the needles themselves or just drink the water out of it. It has a piney taste, of course, but it's a huge source of vitamin C. Now back to the bark eaters. One of the other parts about that is the fresh bark of a pine tree. You get one that's fallen recently or branch that's come down, and you kind of skin the outside bark. So you get just down to about where the wood is. I'm going to get all the way around it here. It's actually very fibrous. Because of that, it can be tough to chew, of course, and it's sweet, and it's definitely sappy as you get working with it here. But we'll cut a section off. I can get a long enough section here. It's easier with a thicker piece. That piece might work. It's sticky and sappy, not very long, so we'll see how well this works. You don't want it to burn all the way through. Essentially burning the edges of it. Makes it a little crispier, like a chip. A little bit easier to eat. Not as tough to chew. But again, there's a ton of fiber in that. And the Adirondacks knew what they were doing. Like most trees are edible. You want to skin the bark off, of course. Kind of see how the end of that is burned. I'm going to give it a second to cool down. You can see we're starting to steam a little bit out of the tea there. It doesn't have a bad taste at all. If you like burnt popcorn, you can handle this. It's a little sweet, still a little piney tasting, but again, it's high in fiber. Just one more thing that you need, your body needs. Throw the rest of that in there. In a second, we'll grab the pine needle tea out of there. There's a lot of different types of pine needles. There's a pretty standard variety. It's again, eastern white pine. This is one of the more standard pine trees that you're going to find anywhere, even here in Wisconsin, especially in the deep woods areas of Wisconsin. Yep, it's getting hot, so the water is definitely heated up. The cup I put on here is my favorite Harley glass. It doesn't look like it's damaging the paint too much. Maybe a little bit around the sides, but it's stoneware, so it should be safe. It's still better to put it on a stone rather than right in the fire. So now, use my gloves, of course. Take it off there. Let it cool for a few seconds. Again, a little piney tasting, but very much like a tea, and loaded with vitamin C. You might catch a needle or two as you drink it down. I don't tend to eat them. You can. They do limber up once they're in there. But they're still somewhat of an annoyance in your mouth because they are hard to chew. So that's pine needle tea and vitamin C, and a little bit of a history lesson about some of our more Native American traditions that a lot of people forget. You don't read about in history books, but were crucial to their survival, and certainly the survival of anybody that does like to be out in the outdoors. You don't need to be a Bear Grylls type or a Survivor Man type. These are pretty common things you can learn on the internet if you're curious enough to look them up. But there are things that can save you if you are somebody who likes to be in the outdoors and get stuck out there. Now I'm at mile 10 of my hike. I have about 6 or 8 more to go, so I'm going to shut you down while I responsibly put this fire out and get back on my way.